Howdy, howdy, Chris here. Welcome back to Garage Noise. Today I'm going to share with you how you can seal, paint, and clear your parts for your vehicle. We've got some Astro stands here we're going to use to paint this bumper and this door on the Chevy Colorado. So let's dig in and get started. Okay, so these parts have already been sanded and prepped out for paint. The way we prepped out this bumper, this was pre-primed. This is an aftermarket bumper. We went ahead and sanded it with 600 grit sandpaper just to smooth everything out, get some good scratches in it so we can have good adhesion, and we're going to seal this before we paint it. So we'll clean this off with isopropyl alcohol, clean all the dust off. Helps eliminate static on these bumpers. We'll do an adhesion promoter on it, and then we'll seal it and paint it. Now the door's also been prepped out. We prepped this out the same with 600 grit sandpaper. Now this is a used door. We did not have to strip the paint off. So if your paint's in good condition, you don't have to strip it off of used parts. You got chips or scratches, you want to take care of those before you paint it, but you don't have to strip off the factory paint. So we'll prep out both of these with isopropyl alcohol, and then we'll mix it some sealer, and I'll talk about how to go about that and how to apply your sealer. We've went ahead and mixed up some sealer. Now the sealer I use is the upol sealer. This can be used as a high build primer, a primer surfacer, or a sealer. If you want to use it as a sealer, you put 4 parts of primer in, you put 1 part of activator and 2 parts urethane reducer. So this is versatile in that way. You can use it as a primer or a sealer or a primer surfacer. It works really well. I've been using it for a while. We are going to use the R500 paint gun. This is a low volume, low pressure paint gun. Produces very little overspray, can be used with a small compressor. So if you're doing stuff at home, that's a good gun to use. And I've got several videos on that particular gun. I always like to lock the cap on and then lift it up to make sure everything's sealed. So we lock in our collar, and then I'll just snap this down, twist it. This is actually not the Spray IQ. This is the Savito disposable cup system. It's a generic disposable cup system for the Series 1 PPS. Let's go ahead and we're going to tack rag these parts down. Then we're going to apply some adhesion promoter to this bumper and certain parts of this door. Basically, this is just a sticky cloth that's going to pick up any lint or dust that remains on this bumper. So we're just going to lightly tack rag it off. Make sure there's no dust or contaminants on this bumper before we use some adhesion promoter. And then I'll show you the adhesion promoter we're going to use. Okay, now we'll hit this bumper with a little bit of adhesion promoter. We're using grip number 4. This is made by upol. Okay, we'll let this flash off for about 10 minutes and we'll be ready to spray our sealer. Okay, so the adhesion promoter is dry. We're going to be using the R500 to spray our sealer. We're going to open up the fan pattern wide open. We're going to turn our volume 3 turns out from close. So I'm going to close it all the way. And then we're going to go 1, 2, 3. Now I'm going to control the amount of sealer that comes out of the gun with my trigger, okay? We're going to set our air pressure at 20 psi, and then I'll control the amount of sealer we spray on this with the trigger. Okay, that's it for the sealer, guys. We got this all sealed. Bumper's all sealed, nice and smooth. Looks very clean, ready to spray our base coat. So let's go ahead and mix up our base coat. Okay, we're just going to use standard Nason full base. It's just Chevy white. Crack it open, give it a stir. This mixes up 2 to 1. I purchased this at my local O'Reilly's. They mixed it up for me. Our reducer, our 1 part of reducer. Stir this up. Our sealer is flashed off enough that we can go ahead and lay a coat of base on it. Now for our base and our clear coat, we're going to use the aeropro A10. This is a R500, basically it's updated look of the R500. Great gun. Now the gun settings, 3 turns out from closed on the fluid volume, fan pattern wide open, air pressure at about 25 psi. After the first coat of paint, we're going to go around and check the coverage with the sunlight, particularly around the edges of the bumper cover. Those are typically the areas that get missed. So you want to make sure everything's covered before you move on to the next step. If I do see there's a little dust or anything, I'll go ahead and tack it off in between coats of base. So we'll just wipe down the bumper cover here and the door, and we'll be ready for our second coat. Okay, now it's time for some clear coat. We're going to use the upol system 20 4-to-1 clear coat. This is a spot panel clear, 4 parts clear, 1 part activator. Make sure you're using the correct activator for the temperature you're spraying in. This is going to affect how your clear coat lays on that panel. I'll add 1 part of standard activator, and I think we're doing about 6 ounces of clear coat for these 2 panels. And with that aeropro A610, it really cuts down on material consumption. So this should be enough to do 2 coats on the bumper and 1 coat on the door. There's 4 really important elements to spraying clear coat, and one is your air pressure, the next is your fluid volume, that's the amount of material coming out of the gun, and then the next is your speed and your distance. So your speed and your distance are going to affect how that clear lays on the panel. Now, the first thing you want to do is set your air pressure at the proper setting. Now, these are just guidelines, but this particular gun I know atomizes clear coat best at around 30 psi, so we're going to set it at 30 psi. When it comes to setting your fluid volume, if you're a beginner and you're unfamiliar with spraying clear, or you're getting a lot of orange peel and you're having struggles, what I would recommend is that you turn that fluid volume all the way in and you turn it 2.5 turns out from closed. I feel like this is going to give you a controlled amount of clear coat that's coming out of the gun, so you're not overwhelmed, you're not going to get runs or heavy texture. You can control the way that clear coat lays on the panel by just adjusting your speed and your distance to get a flat finish. Now, if you feel like you're not getting enough material coming out of the gun, then just bump up that fluid volume a little bit to maybe 3 turns out, and you should be fine. But I want you to play around with your speed and your distance as opposed to opening up that fluid volume all the way and spraying. That can create problems if you're a beginner. So I would like to see you set your air pressure, your fluid volume, and then do some adjustments with your speed and your distance. And then you can understand how all these things work together to give you a beautiful looking clear coat. If you have questions about any of the information I'm giving you in this video, let me know down in the comments below. Okay, so we've got one coat on here. It looks pretty good. A couple little dry areas, but we've got to put one more coat on and it's ready to put the second coat on. So I'm going to dial back the volume just a little bit. Instead of 3 turns out, we're going to go 2.5 turns out from closed, and that's going to atomize it just a little bit better, and we'll get a slicker looking finish on our final coat. Because I'm dialing back my fluid volume just a little bit, you're going to see me move and paint a little bit slower. Okay, let's take a look at this finish. aeropro A610, otherwise known as the R500. Came out pretty clean. I'm happy with it. Door's all set. I just put 1 coat of clear on the door. That's all we need. Or dialing back that fluid volume just a little bit, help it to atomize a little bit more and produce a flatter looking finish. Listen, if you want to learn more about paint and body repair, check out one of these videos now. I appreciate each and every one of you watching. We'll see you next time on Garage Noise.